Hello everybody, welcome to another month of Vine Path. My name is Mariana, I am the wine buyer at Baco's Wine and Cheese. Vine Path is a wine club that we put on in which every month we explore the world of wine through a theme. I pick between 3 and 5 wines and we explore that topic. This month I was feeling really inspired by the Loire Valley. This is a must region for any person that really gets into wine. Ask a lot of wine lovers where their favorite wines are from and many will say the Loire Valley. It's a really unique place. It's a really long area in northern France that ranges from the coast to really inland, almost reaching Paris and Burgundy. And you get all kinds of soils and microclimates, but overall it's a cool climate. Overall these wines are going to have bright acidity. They do whites, they do reds, they do sparkling, they do sweet, they do rosés. We're going to focus on 3 regions. We're going to start at the coast in the Muscadet region. We're going to do a white and a red of the same winery in the Mentou-Salon, so more inland, and then we're going to finish with the northernmost region of the Loire Valley, in the central Loire Valley, in the Jasnieres, with a Pinot d'Aunis. All of these wines are classic in style, but in my opinion they're timeless. So let's dig in. So up first is one of my favorite winemakers of the Loire Valley, Landron. So we're in the Muscadet region. This is the Clos Carizière. This is the Muscadet Sèvres Maine 2022. So we're in an area very close to the Atlantic Ocean. It is very maritime climate. Landron's winery is located in the upper slopes of the Sèvres River, not too far from Nantes. He took over his family winery in 1990. They had about 26 hectares. He's almost doubled it. Right now they have about 50 hectares, 43 of which are all for Melon de Bourgogne, the star grape of this region. 7% of the hectares though are for other grapes such as Fol Blanche, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and Montils, which I hadn't heard of that grape. But those grapes are used for Atmospheres, which is their sparkling wine. Because Landron is quite a fan of champagne, they make an iteration of it. We actually had him at the shop a few weeks ago. It was awesome to meet him. I heard good things, but meeting him in person, him and Carol, who also works with him, they just made the wines come to life. They're so sweet and hilarious, and we had a good time with them at the shop. It was a rainy day, which was very appropriate for trying these wines because it is something that they deal with a lot. Luckily, in the vineyards, they get a lot of airflow and a very cool breeze coming through the vineyard, and that helps with any fungus or issues with humidity. Landron has been certified biodynamic since 2011. He really started getting into organic viticulture and biodynamics since the late 90s. All his vineyards are hand harvested. The Melon de Bourgogne in this wine are about 50 to 70 years old, so really old. This area is famous for their orthogneiss soil. The grape Melon de Bourgogne is definitely more of a neutral grape that really takes on whatever winemaking practices you give it. So a big thing is to age wines on their lees in this area, meaning the dead yeasts that are left in the barrel during fermentation, those are stirred in and it gives it this like brioche that's really delicious. So on the nose, this wine smells like a little bit like the low tide, very slightly. That like salty, funky smell, wet dough, little like green apple. And on the palate you get more, definitely the zippy acidity. You get underripe pineapple, more of those green apple notes, very fresh. We had Island Creek oyster in at our tasting, and a lot of the tin fish that they did, it went excellent. But I would love this wine with a meaty crab dish, so maybe I'm thinking like chunks of crab meat and maybe a taco with some aioli and fresh salsa on it. That would be really fun. Part of the fun of even having this wine club is definitely to highlight value regions and wineries, and I definitely am showing that this month with Domaine Pelle. So we're doing 2 wines from the same winery, and the winery is in the Mentou-Salon region, right in the heart of Morogues. Mentou-Salon, probably one of the most famous regions of the Loire Valley these days, is Sancerre for their Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir. Well, Mentou-Salon is right to the west of Sancerre, and I think their wines are world class, especially when you find a talented producer. Domaine Pelle actually does make wine from Sancerre vineyards, but they started in Mentou-Salon. It's a family winery of many generations that really established itself in the 1950s. Paul Henry is the current winemaker. He took over. Unfortunately, his dad passed away, Eric, in 1995. When he was 22 years old, in 2007, he took over the winemaking with a huge help of his mom, Anne, who does more of like the administrative and office work. And I hear she cooks amazingly when you go visit. But again, Domaine Pelle is all about showing you the terroir and tasting the soils of Mentou-Salon. The main soil in these wines that we're going to taste is Kimeridian. So this is a type of limestone. It's similar to the soils of Chablis and Champagne, the Aube region in Champagne, and so it's really good. It does a really good job showcasing the purity of the fruit. Up first, we're doing the Sauvignon Blanc from Domaine Pelle from the Les Blanches vineyard. This is the 2022. The Sauvignon Blancs from this region tend to be a little more floral and soft than Sancerre can be. Paul Henry uses large wooden vats for their aging, so it's all neutral oak. This wine smells like white floral blossoms, Meyer lemon, wet rock. The texture is wonderful. It's very smooth, the acidity lifts, and you get more like nectarines and more lime, almost like limeade. There's a like little spice at the end that's almost like ginger. Perfect spring wine. I would definitely have this with some risotto. Maybe like an asparagus risotto, something creamy but still very green. Up next, we're doing the Domaine Pelle, their Morogues Rouge from 2022. What a juicy, bright red color. Karen McNeil actually calls this winery out. She calls out their Sancerre in the book, The Wine Bible. This region is actually not too far from Burgundy, who's famous for their Pinot Noir. So it's no wonder Pinot Noir would do well. When I first opened this wine, it was like a fruit punch. It was really aromatic with notes of berries, notes of blackberries, raspberries, very youthful. The more it opened up, the more spice and almost like an earthiness came out. This has now been open for a few hours, and now I'm getting more like dried leaves, wet soil, but still those bright, juicy, kind of between red and purple fruits. The palate has just a little touch of tannin, but it's just high acidity. The Loire Valley is perfect for people that like high acidity because of the year-round cool temperatures. On the palate, you get a little more like tangerine notes, and then the finish kind of reminds me of like Coca-Cola, like that. It must be the dried herbal component. You can definitely have even with the light chill. The Pinot Noirs from the Loire Valley are very popular in Paris. Remember, Loire Valley is really not that far from Paris, so I could definitely, if you ever want to feel like you're in a cool Paris bistro, open up one of these bottles. I would actually have this wine. I've been recently into a lot of curry noodles, either the glass noodles or sweet potato noodles, kind of spicy, sauteed with beef, a lot of veggies, onion, spicy. You want something with a lot of fruit to like calm down the spice, but still with a spunky personality to keep up with all the flavors going on. So I think this wine would be really great with that. Now, Pinot d'Aunis, not a very common grape worldwide, but it is native to the Loire Valley. The 2021 Cuvée de Rosier from Pascal, Janvier, from the Côte Loire. This is actually from Jasnieres region, coolest northernmost part of the Loire Valley. This is 100% a grape called Pinot d'Aunis. If you've never had it, this wine is an absolute treat. This grape is not that popular worldwide. In fact, it's not really planted outside of the Loire Valley. It used to be really fashionable to drink. I'm talking between 1100 to 1400. A lot of royals drank it. It was said that during the 100 Years' War, King Charles VII of France gave plantings to Philip the Good, who was the Duke of Burgundy, as a peace offering. This is debated, but nonetheless, the fact that it was even written about shows how important it was. It really didn't do well after phylloxera though, after that pest that devastated so many vineyards. Pinot d'Aunis is a very hard and finicky grape to grow. I read a blogger described it as a diva. It gets its name from the word pin, or a pine cone, because the bunches are really tight that come out of the vine. and it's really easily susceptible to rot because of the bunches being so tight. It produces really irregular yields and is really sensitive to the soil it's grown in. So if there's too much limestone in the soil, it ripens too quickly, which doesn't allow for enough development to happen. If it's too much clay in the soil, it goes too slow, which slows down the development too much. So it's no wonder that some vine growers don't even want to deal with it. But some, over the years, have really honed in on how to do it and how to best work with it. It's such a unique grape, and it would be a shame if it ever went extinct. So winemakers such as Pascal, Janvier, who now is working very closely with his wife Dominique, they're all about preserving grapes like Pinot Meunier. They work a lot with the grape Chenin Blanc, but they really want that revival of the Jasnieres region. They rent 66 parcels, about 9 hectares. They farm themselves. They're very hands-on. Pinot Meunier is sometimes referred to as Chenin Noir, and sometimes Chenin Blanc is referred to as Pinot de Loire. So even with that confusion, they are not actually related, even though in many regions they are grown side by side because they do well in similar climates. Off the bat, I'm smelling a lot of like gummy red fruit, like Swedish fish. There's almost like a clay minerality to it. And on the palate, you get all the things that this grape is famous for. It's very green, it's very stemmy, but green sometimes is a bad thing when you describe a wine because sometimes it means it's underripe. This wine is very ripe, it's very fresh, but I still get like this vegetal note that is really delicious and refreshing. Definitely the power of suggestion, but I read a lot that you get a lot of white pepper in this grape. And I definitely get some spice, something that really opens up the nose. Tarragon, very light on its toes. It's very thirst quenching. You get a slight amount of tannin, but this is a lighter red. You can even chill this wine. For a light wine, it has a lot of personality. This is another wine that I imagine drinking at a bistro in Paris. You could do so much with this wine. You could have it with so many things. I would keep it simple because of those peppery notes. I would just want this with pâté. Just a beautiful baguette, some pâté, this, maybe some cornichon, call it a day. So thank you so much for joining me this month with the wines of the Loire. We'll definitely be revisiting this region because there's a lot of regions and grapes that we did not even cover. As I was saying, this is a classic wine region for a reason. The level of quality that comes out of these wineries is really high. I think we're living in a glorious wine age because, for example, 100 years ago and before, people were making their wines in their regions. Maybe they were traveling to other regions to learn, but there was not as much communication. There was not as much research and science and publications to like figure out what was going on in fermentation or growing vines. Now with so many institutions, so much travel happening, winemakers and vine growers and wine journalists are just communicating more knowledge is being exchanged. People know more what to do if there's a bad vintage or what's going on or what are the grapes that should be planted in certain regions, and even combating some climate change that is going on. This is a golden age of wine, I would say. Even a bad vintage is not really a bad vintage as it used to be. So I always like revisiting classic regions, and these wines have really exceeded my expectation. I hope you really enjoyed them too. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. In the comments, we link to our wine club Vine Path if you want to join. More information in the link below. Would love to hear any comments or questions in the comment section. And until next month, cheers.